Hi and welcome to this video. Today's question is, can the Pro Mist or Black Mist filter be applied to landscape photography successfully? It's widely used in street photography and movie making just to soften an image, and digital cameras often create overly sharp images. So what I'm going to be doing today is setting up a few scenarios where I'll test the filter and see if it really does make a difference. So stay tuned and we'll find out.
So let's start looking at some scenarios. In each of these scenarios, I will explain the scene and the images that I capture, and then go through the differences with and without the Black Mist filter whilst looking at these in Adobe Lightroom. So this can give you a comparison of the use of the Black Mist filter. In each of these, I have used the 1/8 Black Mist filter. I've also got a 1/4 due for delivery. As soon as that arrives, I'll create a shorter update video to this, comparing the 1/8 and the 1/4 for you guys so that you can see the difference. I'm not going to be ordering a 1/2. I believe that a half strength Black Mist filter is too strong for landscape photography and will detract so much from the scene. The other thing to remember is whenever using the Black Mist filter, because it affects the immediate source of your image, always, or certainly my practice, is to always take one shot with and one shot without the filter in that scenario. It's worth noting that the use of a Black Mist filter can create an issue with flare on the lens. So what I will be doing is at the end of the video, I'll be telling you how to correct that so that you can assess it for each of your lenses, and the method that I've used for assessing it for my lenses.
This is the scene that I'm going to capture. You can see here that the sun is capturing the tops of the leaves and the branches, and the reflection of the sun in the water is really catching it really strongly underneath to give it that underlighting effect.
This is the first image that I want us to look at. This was taken under the trees. You can see immediately the one on the left is without the filter and the one on the right is with the filter. You can see immediately that this is a little bit more highlighted. The bloom is a bit more highlighted within the sun rays coming under the trees. If I click on this, notice the histogram. It's just slightly pushed further to the right because of the bloom effect. Now if I zoom in on the details of the leaves and the branches, you can see here that we haven't really lost any detail if we look in here, but the bloom has really highlighted certain areas. So when zooming in, you do in essence lose a very slight little bit of detail under the leaves because of the bloom. But if I come back out on that, what you'll notice is it creates a more leveled and lighter area style of image, and that's my preference in this one. If I go to this image, what we can do is take a look. The underneath of the leaves and the branches is pretty much the same as the previous image, but if I zoom in on the sun, you can immediately see this is the one with the filter and this is the one without. If I zoom in on the sun, you can really see the bloom effect that the filter has had on that as it comes through the leaves themselves. You can see again that it's created a bloom effect in other areas, but we're not really losing any of the detail within because we've got the 1/8 filter. So it's really just creating a great bloom effect, just softening the image, and when going underneath the leaves, it really does enhance the image through the expansion of the bloom effect.
So here's another scene that I'm looking to capture the image for. As you can see, we've got a really strong reflection. I'll take this image now, both with and without the Black Mist filter, and we'll take a quick look at the results straight away to see what impact it has on reflections when looking downstream.
And this is the resultant image. We can see that the one on the left is without the filter and the one on the right is with the filter. You can see a similar effect underneath the leaves that we saw in the last scenario. But what I'm interested in here is more the reflections to see the impact. And you can see that whilst it's had minimal impact on the actual reflection itself, what it has done is just bloom the water flare just a little bit. So it's just enhanced that image. This is more apparent on the next image. If I come into this one, what we can see is that it's had the same effect on the leaves in the tree. The one on the left is the one without the filter. And here we can see the difference that it's made to on the right with the bloom effect. So it's really created that bloom in those leaves on the waterline. And in the reflection itself, it's really softened the reflection. Now, obviously, there's an impact of the water flow here anyway, but you can really see the impact of the flare that it's had then. And that, when zoomed in, can look a little bit abstract. But when zoomed out, again, it creates a really great effect in that reflection.
Okay, so you may not hear me above the sound of the waterfall, but hopefully you can. This is a scene that I'm going to try and capture. The waterfall itself is in the shade, but I'm going to try and get a bit of foreground with and without. What I'll then do is put a neutral density filter on, as well as the black mist diffuser, and we'll see what that can do.
And this is the result of the images that we managed to capture from the waterfall. I've really just picked these two to give you the comparison and the impact that it has, and the effect would be the same for whatever waterfall you would choosing. You can see here that we've got very similar exposures. The background is a little bit more bloom. We're using the filter in the sunlight at the top. But what is really noticeable about this is the softening of the actual lines of the waterfall. So this was taken at half a second, as you can see. But what we can really notice is the diffuser with the bloom really softens the point of impact and the actual flow. So where you've got the really bright areas in the waterfall, it really creates a smoother, less contrasty image. Again, I like this effect. It's not for every waterfall, I suspect, and I go back to my point about taking the image with and without the diffuser on. But what you can see is the softening of the water here. So well worth trying on waterfalls because it really adds a softer edge when you get those water flows when you do a longer exposure.
And this is the location for sunset. This is the kind of scenery I'll be taking it of. I will show you the results in just 1 second, but you can see that we will be looking directly into the sun. We will be trying to get some layered photographs across the valley as well as the sun sets. Let's have a look at these images now.
Here, I'll bring up a series of silhouette images of the skyline. The sun was just out of frame to the top left, but what you can immediately notice is without the filter, we've got the contrast image, but with the filter applied on the right hand side, you can see that it's increased the bloom effect from the sun, even though the sun is outside of the shot. And this applies when I look at others as well. You can see that it adds that orange misty cast. So this I think is a personal preference. In certain scenarios this works really well, in other scenarios it's a little bit too strong. So this is definitely something that I would suggest again you use the filter for. You can see here that it's really, I believe in this one, it's really enhanced this. The sun is directly above and it's enhanced the rays, the bloom of the rays coming through the trees. And now I'm going to move on to shooting directly into the sun. So here's one where I shot directly into the sun. Let's zoom in. You can see the effect is minimal on the clouds at this point. But if I look at the sun and if you concentrate on that, you can see on the left you've got the flare, but it's really enhanced the bloom. So let's zoom in on that. You can see that it's softened the bloom underneath the actual image itself just there. So that is a really great effect when shooting directly into the sun. And here I'm going to compare now and talk about the problems with potentially using the black mist filter, because we are adding another piece of glass onto the front of our lens. And we'll notice here that it's softened the sun and the bloom effect is really effective. However, we have this flare on the filtered image, whereas we don't have that on the unfiltered image. And I'm going to talk now about how we can cure that. So what's our process for getting rid of the lens flare on our lenses? Here you can see on the left we have the lens flare, and on the right we have no lens flare of what is essentially the same scene. So let's start taking a look at this. Let's come out of our reference view here and we'll go through a series of images. You can see here that we're at f5. This is shot with the Sigma 100 to 400, and we've got the lens flare. So what's happening is the sun is reflecting off the front element of the lens, hitting the black mist filter, and then coming back through the lens. So we have the lens flare there. If I go through these, you'll see the impact that changing the aperture has. So I've gone to f6.3, still there. f8, it's starting to go down a little bit. F11 nearly gone completely, and at F14 it's eliminated. So what I would propose is that with each of your lenses, when shooting directly into the sun, which is very relevant during sunsets and things like that, go through each lens and find out at which f-stop, which aperture opening, the reflection is eliminated. And here, obviously, we go to f16 now as we went up through the apertures. And that's how you need to eliminate that flare, because you may want the flare. Me, personally, I want to eliminate it. Each of the lenses will be different dependent upon the front element, but this is a process that you would need to go through in order to eliminate that lens flare.
I do hope that you've enjoyed this video and found some of this useful and can help in your landscape photography experience as well. If so, please remember to like and subscribe, and also remember to check out some of my other videos which cover equipment, on location and tutorials. Thank you very much.